Now and then, the torch must be passed and the student becomes the master. But that doesn't always mean their story's over. Sometimes we end up fighting their predecessor, either as their way of testing you, maybe circumstances beyond their control have turned them against us, or maybe they're just making a guest appearance to settle old scores. Whatever the case, we're giving a special shout out to previous player characters who became bosses along the way. To clarify, we're talking about those who were players in previous games, not just a simple perspective shift. A lot of history goes a long way. Also, we're giving extra credit to how shocking or sudden the character's appearance is before the ensuing battle begins. We're also factoring in how much of the previous moveset and abilities they use against you, and how much you missed it when you were in the driver's seat. Considering what happened with Akira Toriyama, I want to talk about Dragon Ball. It's kind of funny. We don't talk about Dragon Ball that often, even though that end card explosion is as synonymous with me as clowns fire and clowns using fire. Now, it's just as easy to say we're fighting Goku as Vegeta or Gohan or someone else in the many Dragon Ball games, but I have something way more unique. So, you know in Xenoverse you can create your own custom character to go through the whole Dragon Ball timeline? Well, what happens when you have a sequel and you can make a new character? That first character just gets retconned, right?
I'm back!
Yay!
Nope. They're actually part of the story, helping you at several intervals. It's such a cool concept, and don't worry, you get to fight them as, eventually, the underboob demon witch Toa gets control of them, forcing you both to fight. Now, despite the concept, you don't really get to fight the previous Time Patrol agent at their full power. They will have different attacks depending on their species, but they aren't going to use all the super flashy attacks you gave them in the first Xenoverse game. Same thing for transformations. Even if you made a Saiyan, they ain't going Super Saiyan here. Despite that, it's still a super cool idea. They are still your avatar from the previous game, and you can interact with them as an NPC in this one. It doesn't detract from your accomplishments from the first game and adds continuity for this one. Now, of course, the impact is lessened if you never played the first game and started from 2, which most people would be doing nowadays. Due to these factors, they're number 10. But I wish more Avatar-based games did this with sequels. It would make playing the earlier games more fun, even with Xenoverse's drop rate and 2's never-ending content. Yeah, it came out 7 years ago and is still supported. No, it's not an MMO or gacha game. Weird.
How are you not dead? I have no idea!
Stranger of Paradise is an interesting game to go through. What begins as an edgy early 2000s retelling of Final Fantasy I soon reveals itself to be something far deeper. As it turns out, the Lufenians who sent Jack and the others on his quest are actually the true villains. They perpetuated the cycle to keep themselves in power and keep the world in an eternal stasis. Once Jack realizes this, he goes completely off the rails to stop it. He lets himself wield the power of chaos, and his allies become the Four Fiends, not because he wants to destroy everything, but so he can end the status quo while inspiring a true hero to save everyone. And now you realize that this is just the plot of Wicked. Once all that is said and done, there's only one more opponent left for Jack to face: the Warrior of Light himself. Being a protagonist, the Warrior is surprisingly fair. He can be freely staggered, and most of his attacks have obvious tells. But, as a callback to the original, the Warrior gains the blessing of Bahamut and becomes far more dangerous. The opportunities to hurt him become far fewer, and his attacks are far harder to dodge. You have to rely on reflection or damage over time to win. This really is the climax of Jack's character arc. He's learned to fight against the injustices of the world, and now he's passing it on to a worthy successor. In fact, you even get to experience it from the other perspective later on. The only real reason I can't rank this one any higher is because, well, it's in the post-game. By now, you're either demolishing everything or dying in 2 hits. Still better than the one in 14. Yuck. Throughout the Xenoblade series, we've seen our heroes grow to barely resemble the people they started out as. Shulk went from a humble engineer to the universe-recreating savior. Rex went from a fantasy dumpster diver to the only intelligent harem protagonist. In Xenoblade 3, they're revered as the founders of the city. In Future Redeemed, they're reintroduced to you as the dads to 2 of your other party members. Eventually, their respective children, Nickel and Glimmer, proclaim they want to participate in the final battle in Origin. Of course, Rex doesn't think they have what it takes. Thankfully, Riku is able to come up with a way to boost Nickel and Glimmer's power. However, it can only be achieved through a trigger. And of course, this means they need to face off against their respective dads in a 2v2. As you'd expect, Shulk and Rex are absolute beasts. All their crazy powerful arts are now unleashed at you in your party of only 2 characters. You'll need to have mastered Nicole's tanking and Glimmer's healing to stand a chance. While it's an admittedly short fight, hence the short description, it's still really great to experience just how far everyone's come. Now, if only Square would let Monolith buy the Xenogears IP so we could see all the games cross over. I can only dream. Throughout the first 3 entries of the Devil May Cry series, we've experienced firsthand the highs and lows in Dante's life. Especially the lows. Along the way, we learned our fair share of sword and gun techniques. But what's it like on the other side of the arsenal? We get our answer in DMC4. During a tutorial level, we play as newcomer Nero, who finds himself at odds with Dante following an attack at an opera house. Okay. In reality, Dante was there to kill the leader of the actual bad guys. But sans context, outside looking in, yeah, not a good look, buddy. Fairly assuming the worst, Nero engages Dante in a warm-up act, helping us learn the basics like shooting, melee, and your Devil Bringer. Here, Dante isn't too difficult, but the scrape lights the fuse for Nero's need for vengeance. Said need comes to a head later on when they meet again in the 10th mission. If the first fight was just the opening act, this was Dante's showstopper, as he pulls out all the stops, utilizing multiple fighting styles and handling them aggressively, and able to dodge, block, and counter you without fail. Oh yeah, he's not really using all of his abilities, but he clearly doesn't need them. But he's got a noticeable weakness.
Jump good.
He can't dodge or fire when he's jumping or shooting, so hitting him with your buster at the right moment is key. Fortunately, Dante's a pretty good sport here. He only fought Nero because he wanted his Yamato, which coincidentally belonged to his brother Virgil. He lets Nero keep it and...
It's gotta stay in the family.
Okay, seeing as this was before the big Nero is Virgil's son reveal, that was a really nice touch. Speaking of Virgil, in the special edition version of DMC5, Dante's the final boss of Virgil's story. And I mean, come on, how could I not mention a fight between the series' best dance partners from the other half's POV? Like the main game's final brawls, this one has a sense of finality as both brothers give it everything they've got, the second round being more punishing than the first. No matter who's in the driver's seat, all 4 tussles with Dante showcases different abilities in a profound way. This is especially seen in his DMC5 fight, where playing as Virgil shows how tough of a fighter Dante truly is. And, as expected, all his attacks are ones you've gotten to toy with in the past. Man, really makes you appreciate all the times when you get to be on the giving end instead of the receiving. Plus, having all 4 duels be between family members seems really meaningful, as it emphasizes one of the major recurring themes of the franchise.
Family.
I see you guys' comments. People tell me that I have a habit of reusing the same boss from the same game over and over. Wonder where they got that idea from. Nothing comes to mind. Okay, so I do talk about Kiryu and Yakuza a lot on this channel. But what can I say other than he's a compelling character with a really good boss fight in Yakuza Like a Dragon? We played as Kiryu throughout all of the first 6 Yakuza games, and we watched his journey unfold as he goes from the 4th chairman of the Tojo clan to manager of the Morning Glory Orphanage to, taxi driver? Anyway, our long journey with Kiryu comes to a close in Yakuza 6, where he fakes his death after having defeated Koshimitsu and taken 3 bullets to protect Haruto, Haruka, and Yuta. After that, it appears as though Kiryu may be done fighting for good. That is, until Like a Dragon. Here we follow a new protag, Ichiban Kasuga, who literally starts out the game serving 18 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. But hey, at least he did it willingly as a favor to his mentor Arakawa.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, later on, Ichiban finds Arakawa's body in the port of Yokohama. Ooh.
Oh, that's not nice.
Frustrated, Ichiban falsely accuses Aoki of his mentor's murder. Before he can commit a murder of his own, who better to stop him than the Dragon of Dojima himself? From there, we have to fight Kiryu in 4 phases, all using movesets from the previous 6 games. Brawler style, Rush style, Beast style, and of course, his signature Dragon of Dojima style are all utilized by Kiryu throughout this fight. You better have blunt resistance if you have any hopes of taking him down. Also, you may want to have a female or 2 on your team since he doesn't attack women. He is a predator like that. The alien, I mean. One thing I should note is that Kiryu's boss fight takes place during Chapter 14, which is subtitled Passing the Torch. And honestly, that's kind of what this fight represents. After spending 6 games beating up bad guys with several powerful movesets, we must learn from the master. And it's pretty humbling to get a taste of our own medicine. But that's not the only thing that makes this fight so significant. The reason Kiryu fought us in the first place was because he wanted Ichiban to process his anger and grief. Kiryu has empathy for Ichiban as someone whose parents were killed at a young age, has had several people try to kill him, and watched his girlfriend die in his arms, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. This is what makes Kiryu's interactions with Ichi so special, and makes his boss fight special by extension. Huh, is this what all therapy sessions with Kiryu are like? If so, sign me up. Hey, remember that RPG series I mentioned last year and said that not a lot of people played it? Found out I have a lot of fans who have played it, then milked it for the rest of the year? Okay, I've done that for a few franchises, but I mean Trails in this case. I've talked about Rand Schwartzer before and how he has some demons. See dark forms for everything sacrificed to Reen, but to summarize, Reen has a powered up form that he's scared of and has trouble controlling. Turns out that form is the power he got from the control unit of a giant knight turned sentient to devil, who then made a deal with Reen's father, who is the reincarnation of the most famous emperor of their land, and that power is supposed to start the process to end the world. I told my writers to stop with the run-on sentences! Anyways, the end of Cold Steel 3 happens. One of Reen's homunculus friends, because he has several, sacrifices herself and Reen goes berserk, taking the sword made from her body and killing the nameless beast at the bottom of a giant holy site whose blood is used to trigger the end of the world, which is a curse that drives the entire world to war, killing millions in the process. Wasn't there a fight or something? Right, here we go. Reen gets super corrupted and captured by the enemies, so it's up to his students to find him. You play as Reen's students in the first third of Cold Steel 4, where you work with his old classmates and allies to find him. Eventually, you locate him in the depths of the Black Workshop. Without his name and spirit, all he wants to do is kill everyone who was involved in his friend's death. His students give their own speeches about how he's being the stupid one, and, of course, the fight begins. Reen will be permanently in his ogre form throughout the fight, which is a huge deal. He's immune to debuffs and status effects, and his attack and defense are through the roof. He hits like a truck and takes hits like a tank. Plus, he's fast, and all his special attacks are boosted. So how do we win? Well, with a combo of magic and breaking. Use Yuna and Musei to break his guard while using Kurt or Altena to dodge or guard. With the game's main theme playing as the battle theme, you need to give it everything to bring Reen back. Luckily, there are no gimmicks, no conditions, just a 5v1 against Trail's most broken protag. I want to remind you there was way more buildup with this fight as I had no time to mention the relationship between Reen and his students and how all that builds up to this. No, really, trust me, when I say this fight has a ton of buildup and was worth it in the end, I mean it. Too bad they forced you into a duo fight with the two canonically strongest foes in the series right after. Man, how is this series fast and slow at the same time? So every millennial weirdo on YouTube loves to talk about how Nintendo's deepest and most complex lore is found in Kirby and Pokemon. But Splatoon lore is on a whole nother level. We could talk about how these games take place in a post-apocalyptic world where mammals have died out thanks to humanity warring on itself, or we could talk about how every music track is made by an in-universe band, but those are two entirely separate rabbit holes. No, today we're talking about the DLC campaign for Splatoon 2 Octo Expansion. In the first game, Octolings and Octarians were relegated to faceless mooks under the control of the musical tyranny of DJ Octavio. While Sunken Scrolls did imply they had their own society and were actually somewhat oppressed in the grand scheme of things, to you, they were merely the enemy. This all culminates in the final battle where, as Agent 3, you and the Squid Sisters disrupt Octavio's beats with the Calamari Incantation. A legendary song that's said to be coded in the DNA of Inkling culture. We learn in the second game that this final battle was broadcast as a concert all across Octarian society, and even managed to break the mind control Octavio had over his people. And in Octo Expansion, you play as one such inspired Octoling. Agent 8, as they become known, teams up with Off the Hook and Captain Cuttlefish to find out the secrets of the Deep Sea Metro and locate Agent 3, who had gone missing inside. You even get to customize Agent 3 to match what you had them look like in Game 1. This all culminates in the enigmatic telephone you've been following the instructions of, trying to kill you in a giant blender. What was this game rated again? Only for Agent 3 to come to the rescue, and they get mind controlled by the telephone. Alright. And it's up to you to return the favor. So, how's the fight? I'm glad you asked, hypothetical question. Being a multiplayer game, it was pretty easy to design the boss like a 1v1. But Agent 3 is busting out several tricks that keep you on your toes. Bomb spam? Check. Mastering control over the environment? Check. Spamming multiple specials like the Splashdown and Stingray? Oh, you better believe that's a check. Agent 3 is hard, but fighting them is almost exactly like dealing with a tough opponent in multiplayer. Agent 3 is a hero to both Inklings and Octolings, and you're playing as someone who was conditioned to hate Inklings, and the opposite was true for Agent 3. And now you're fighting them again, this time to help them. Defeating Agent 3 means that you meet your hero, prove to be a match for them, and even rescue them, paying them back for saving you and inspiring you to become a hero just like them. But if that's not enough for you, well, say hello to Inner Agent 3, a souped up version of the fight that serves as a super boss for Octo Expansion. Here you're fighting the memory of them on that fateful day, and yeah, you're basically a regular mook fighting the protagonist. Good luck! Wow, from Trails and Splatoon to Kingdom Hearts, you guys are killing it on the deep lore bingo card. Well, let's get to that free space. It isn't strange to fight your friends in RPGs, as this and most of my other lists show. And Kingdom Hearts holds that standard. I've talked about the fights with Roxas and Lingering Will to death, but with those fights and fights against other protags like Riku and Ventus, they don't really fit the rules of this list. Okay, 358/2 Riku does, but I have a better fight in mind. After going through the contractually obligated Disney worlds in Kingdom Hearts 3, the plot moves forward back to the Destiny Islands, where Sora is looking for Riku and Mickey in the Realm of Darkness. Right before Sora comes in, Riku finds himself with a corrupted Aqua, who at this point has been stuck in the realm for the last 10 years and was launched into the dark pool of water by Ansem earlier. So the loneliness she's been feeling is taking quite a toll. Sora, being the friendship speaker he is, goes headfirst to save Aqua from her fate by hitting her really, really hard. Aqua fights pretty similarly to the fights with Phantom Aqua in 02, with some more bells and whistles. She'll teleport around the arena, summoning doppelgangers of herself and mostly attacking from a distance. She'll use her base style from Birth by Sleep and conjure dark magic to lay the hurt on Sora. Unlike the O2 fight though, she isn't as aggressive. There are times when she's just standing there or walking almost aimlessly in the fight. I count this less as poor design and more of showcasing Aqua's lost hope. The darkness amplifies her negative emotions to exaggerated lengths. Unlike Rinu's emotion is anger and mourning, hers is loneliness and dismissal. She has been holding it together for 10 years, trapped in literal darkness, and her switch has been flipped. While it is a great set piece, it does make the brawl pretty easy in lower difficulties. Oh, don't worry, she'll give you a challenge in critical mode. Aqua has always been a fan favorite among the pro tags, so seeing her struggle in a fight like this is honestly pretty cool. And like a lot of bosses on here, she uses attacks from her game. I do wish she was a bit harder on proud mode, but hey, I'm a guy who beat Lingering Will in 90 seconds. I'm just happy we got critical mode. Okay, we talked about Trails lore, Splatoon lore, and Kingdom Hearts lore. Hopefully we're done with insanely complicated lore dumps this countdown, right? Yeah, Dark Souls lore. We're talking about that now. The entire franchise centers around First Flame. Kindled at the beginning of the world by Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, the First Flame is essentially the centerpiece of the universe. It maintains the balance of reality and keeps the sun shining, and humanity's flourishing is directly tied to how bright its flames shine. But such a hearth cannot burn forever without fuel, and the fuel the First Flame takes is the souls who link it. Across the first and second games, your job is to link the First Flame, fulfilling your duty and a long line of heroes to keep this dying world alive. But make no mistake, the world of Dark Souls is dying, and by the time Dark Souls 3 rolls around, it's on its last death knell. And when you make it to the First Flame, you're greeted by a simple flaming knight, sitting at the First Flame like a bonfire. This seems oddly familiar. And as it stands and attacks, you start to see things you've seen before, like patterns in how it attacks, almost like you've been doing this entire time. It even dodge rolls. Oh yeah, dodge roll up, baby! So, the Soul of Cinder is definitely going to give the average Dark Souls veteran tons of deja vu until the realization dawns. The Soul of Cinder is the culmination of every single person who ever linked the First Flame. The Chosen Undead, the Bearer of the Curse, and the Soul of Cinder are you. The Soul of Cinder is the culmination of every player who struggled through Dark Souls made manifest. You can even see it with how it fights. The Soul of Cinder swaps from a greatsword build to a spear build and even a mage build. It's insanely tough, essentially hitting you with the fury and willpower you would use against the average Dark Souls boss. Deplete its health, and there's a second phase. The song slows into a somber piano and... Hello, Gwyn. Yeah, Gwyn decides enough is enough and takes direct control of the Soul of Cinder, fighting you exactly how he did in Dark Souls 1, as the soundtrack transforms into a harrowing remaster of his leitmotif. The Soul of Cinder is a celebration of the entire series up to this point. Everything that you have accomplished and everything your fellow players have achieved, you're now fighting them head on. A final farewell to the Dark Souls series is you battling with the very concept of everything you've been fighting for. And when you finally overcome the Soul of Cinder, you're faced with the legendary choice that greets you at the end of every game. Do you offer yourself up to the First Flame, joining the others that have come before you? Or do you extinguish it and finally put their troubled souls and this dying world to rest, closing the book on Dark Souls once and for all? You know, if the Soul of Cinder started praising the sun, I don't know if you could even beat it without crying. Chuck Green, Dead Rising 2, Off the Record. Oh, hey, Chuck's here. How you doing? What was that about your daughter? Oh, no, this is the bad ending. Oh, no, Chuck, no! Kean and Angelus, Dragon Guard 2. Kean became one of the main baddies, but it was mostly to end Angelus's agony, showing their partnership never really ended. Byleth, Fire Emblem Warriors, 3 Hopes. Fun subversion of the trope as Byleth is the Lu Bu of the game. Vent/Ale, Mega Man ZX Advent, fighting the Biometal heroes all grown up. They even come with some luscious mains. Venom Peter, Spider-Man 2. The student surpasses the master and saves him from himself.
Wow, that was schmaltzy.
We've all heard the jokes about the ethics of letting some 10-year-old kid globetrot the Pokemon world on foot with nothing but a bag full of monsters. But once you stop overthinking it, you start to see the journey for what it really is. A growing experience. Setting out as a bright-eyed youngster, going out into the world to learn everything you can. By the time you reach the Elite Four and the champion, you're ready to put all that knowledge and experience you gained to the test and emerge triumphant. The thing is that after that, once you get the crown, the journey's pretty much over. Outside of rare guest appearances or remakes, we don't really get to see most of our protagonists again after their respective games. With one huge exception. Red, the OG Pokemon trainer. The first in a long line of champion pro tags. We lived his story from start to finish in Gen 1 and helped him become the master he was destined to be. But in the post-game for Gen 2, he makes a surprise appearance on Mount Silver to test his successor's capabilities. Along with being heavily stacked, Red's team is a huge continuity nod, mostly composed of Gen 1 starters, mascots, and gift Pokemon you found along the way. On top of that, he never speaks once. The Pokemon player character never speaks in this series, and even after becoming the champion, he ain't starting now. Once you manage to beat him in his own game, he vanishes. But we haven't seen the last of him yet. Now and then he makes more comebacks in gauntlet tournaments just to keep us on our toes. And to date, he's the only player character in the franchise to get this kind of treatment. Okay, yes, it was obvious he was gonna be on this list, let alone be at the top. Okay, so the Pokemon world started with his journey. His boss fight in Gen 2 is him symbolically passing the torch so that the next generations could thrive. And even after that, he never truly leaves. I know the anime is its own beast, but it's worth mentioning that last year, Ash, Red's anime counterpart, finally finished his journey. Whatever this means, he'll be back at some point. I'm not sure, but it's nice to see the anime mirroring the games by passing the torch. It only took them over 20 freaking years. I'm Josh Scorcher, and join us next month while we'll be paying tribute to... Oh, look at that. It's that time again.
To make fun of Ubisoft.
To Cynthia for Cynthia?
No, it's time to dedicate a whole month to a video game franchise or theme. So we turn to the Wheel of Countdowns.
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Bob Equestria for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.